Ellie, I've met you previously at a Duke Fest, I think in 2018.
Yes,
Um,
it was 2018, yeah.
yeah, and prior to that, or maybe after, you spoke at Code Garden as well.
Yeah.
So you're not completely unfamiliar with the Umbraco community. Um,
Yeah, actually, the first time that I ever spoke, it was there in Denmark. It was an awesome experience, a really friendly environment, and after that, I started talking more and more into conferences. So I have to thank the Umbraco family for that, because it gave me like a great push to start talking more.
that's so amazing to hear. And something that I know about you from, I guess, Twitter is that you're a big advocate of the 100 Days of Code challenge, but not just doing it the once. How many times have you done it now?
I don't know. I don't count them now, but like I find it like a great way for me to evolve, to develop myself, and to meet new people and to do some cool things, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just proves that it's not about being a beginner and getting to learn a technology. You use it as a way of exercising your skills and learning new ones as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So what are you going to be talking to us about?
Today I will talk about the UX and UI because although I do like coding a lot, I also like design things. So I will be talking about that, and hopefully I will give some good tips to people that are working both as developers and designers.
Amazing. I was saying just earlier how I would never give me a design task because it's not going to go very well. We know how it is when developers try to design things. So let's hope you can teach me how to be a better designer.
I hope that by the end of this talk, you will be a little bit better.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Whenever you're ready, Ellie, off you go.
Okay, so just give me a second and think that we can start. Um, okay. All right. So thank you people again for watching my presentation and for tuning in. My presentation is, it's easy to create a good looking product, but how about a useful one? And we already had like a short introduction about myself, and thank you very much about that. But my name is Eleftheria. You can call me Ellie because Eleftheria is kind of huge. I am an app developer, and as I said, I really love coding, but my other passion is design, UX and UI design. So my talk will be about that. You can find me on my social media and feel free to connect with me there. I always like to chat with people and learning more and more. So the things that we are about to see in this session is UX versus UI. UX stands for user experience, UI stands for user interface. We will continue with heuristics. What is heuristics? How to use them as a developer, how you can find a way to use them. And we will continue with the 10 usability heuristics. And the last two parts are going to be some tips and tricks for UX and for UI. So some really simple things, just quick and easy. All right, now let's start with UX and UI. If you search over the internet, you will find like a ton of articles, a ton of videos, like everyone is trying to explain these two things. What are the similarities? What are the differences? The thing that I'm going to do different than the resources out there is that we will see two different perspectives. We are going to see the perspective of the user, so how a user understands UX and UI, and the perspective of the designer, because it's a different thing to see some things from the perspective of user, and the other thing is the actual designer, or you, that you are a developer, but you may also have some design tasks to do. So this is the first thing, and let's try explaining some things from the user's perspective, just because I think it's a little bit easier to be understood. So from the user's perspective, the user interface is what a user interacts with a product, what he sees, what he taps, or what he clicks in, and the whole experience is localized in a device. So in an external device, in a product or something like that. From the other hand, the user experience is how a user interacts with that product, how he feels. And the key word here is how he feels when he uses that product. And the whole experience this time is localized on the physical body. So just by looking somebody, we can understand if the product is good or bad. So maybe the other person is cracking a smile, maybe is angry with the thing that he holds on. So this is pretty much the different from the user's perspective. Now, if we go to the designer's perspective, here things are a little bit different. I will start again with an analogy, and imagine a big icicle like the one that you see in the image. The UI design is the part that you see first, like the tip of that icicle is something that you always see. But it's not only that. Below that, there is a whole, let's say, mountain that holds the tip, and there is the whole structure that again holds everything within together. This is the UX. So again, the user interface is what you can see and interact with, but the user experience is what you can see alongside with what you can't see and what holds everything together. So what is UX really? And I don't think that there is an easy term that I can just throw out there and everyone will understand, because UX is actually something that it continuously evolving and it continuously getting things. So it's all the time evolving. And let's try to see some subjective and some objective things that are under the umbrella of UX. So some questions that we usually answer in UX are, does it with the app by cracking a smile? Are the icons and the illustrations like understandably enough? Is the user pleasantly surprised by an animation, or is the feedback okay? And from the other hand, it can also be objective. And here we answer questions like, does the user actually accomplish what he's trying to do? Is the speed like good enough? Is the satisfaction where it should be? Is a swiping gesture more effective than a tap event and stuff like that? And these are only some of the questions that the UX designer will try to answer, but later we are going to see again like more and more. So I will try also to give you an example to better understand the UX. Let's start with the bad example, and we will be talking about riding sharing app like Beat, Uber, and stuff like that. Now imagine an app that it doesn't let you to see in real life where your driver is, where you are inside like the car, the time that you will arrive in your destination. It doesn't show you the cost until like it's the last moment. And now imagine a different kind of app. This time the app will show you live data, will let you save your favorite destination, will let you share the cost with your friends. Which one would you prefer? And I think that the answer here is simple, but sometimes when we are talking about our products, we think that our products are going like to that second category, that everything is super fun and cool. And sometimes we forget that there are some things that maybe are not so great. And we will try also to see those things, understand those things, and solve those things. So I think that by now you have understood why UX is important. But as a recap, I will say that UX is important because at its core, it's about putting people before technologies and before products. And it focuses on always creating positive experiences for the users. And as the designers or the developers, having in mind all those methods and tests and other things that we can do, we can help making a better product, which is like a win-win situation, both for our users and for the business. Now, what does a UX designer do? And bear with me, because we are going to see a lot of things, but basically it's the practice of UX. Now, if we want to go into a bit more of a detail, we will start with a quick history lesson. So the man that you see on your screen is Don Norman. He is a pioneer in the field of UX. He started as an engineer and later he worked at Apple, and now we have that app that we all know. And as I mentioned, he started as an engineer, but then the field that he pioneered was that he observed users using products, and he was the first one that did that. Now he's a very famous person. He has wrote a lot of books. If anyone wants to go into more detail, I would suggest the Design of Everyday Things. Side note here, you can find it for free over the internet, and like, it's a great book. And now we can continue with our first question, which was, what a UX designer do? He's doing many things. The answer again is not simple. The UX designer solves real problems for real people. The main focus is that he tries to make everything work better. So he has in his mind the ease and the satisfaction of the product. These two things, ease and satisfaction. And he will make, again, questions, like a lot of questions, like who are the users and what do they want? What are the main features the users need? What are the current behaviors? How will the product connect with them? What type of content users want and need? And what does the product look like? These questions, he's not going to answer them alone. He's going to have with him or her like a ton of other people. He's going to have project manager, other designers, marketeer people, and of course, users. The users are going to be the people that they will give those answers. So again, just remember that a designer is never alone. Now let's try to see again some of the things that the UX designer will do in his everyday life, let's say. I have here this pyramid with like 5 steps. We will start from the bottom to top. I'm not going to give a lot of details for every step, but I will try to explain as better as I can what this step is about, what each step is about. So we have the user research and analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, and visual design. Let's start from the bottom. And on the user research and analysis, this is where everything begins for a UX designer. He will do user interviews, user behavior studies, focus groups, and surveys, and other things. And when he has gathered all the data, he will continue by creating user personas, user stories, empathy maps, and customer journeys. And when, again, all these things are done, he will continue with the content strategy. Now, some people may think that the content strategy is a little bit boring, let's say, because the designer has to do things such as writing product copy and micro copy, selecting the right wording and tone for the target users, and writing emails, messages, and stuff like that. But after that, we have the step with information architecture, which is a little bit more fun, let's say. This is the step that everything is starting to show, and everything is started to connecting. We have all the data and all the information that we need, and now we are ready to put them into action. So in that step, which is like the lifeblood of digital systems and products, it's how we show the product to the user. It's really important how we present the product to the user, and it's really important how he is going to receive that. So some things that are happening into that step is card sorting, sitemaps, wireframes, user flows, and a lot more. And then if we continue, we have like the interaction design. And here also UI designers are going to work in that step. So I'm not going again into details. We are going to see that in a bit. And also the visual design, which is our last step for the UX designers. Now, I think that you may have understood what UX is and what UX designers do. And I think that we talked about the perspective of the user and the perspective of the designer. But also let's go to UI and let's see, what UI really is. And you may think that UI, so user interface, is only colors and buttons and some icons. But I will try again to change your mind into that, because it's not only how it looks. Guess what? It can also be audible. Like, imagine all those software that we currently have, like Siri and Alexa from Amazon. We have all those kind of things. We can just shout on a machine and it will answer with the weather, the music. It can like book us tickets or air tickets and stuff like that. So this is amazing, and this is UI. So we have visible for UI, we have audible for UI, and do we have only those two things? No, we also have the textual. So UI can also be textual. Another example here is the CMD, the command line. Like imagine typing something there. This is a form of UI. I'm not saying it's pretty, but it's also like a UI. It's a kind of UI. I think that now you have like a better understanding with what user interface is. But if we want again to go into a little bit of more detail, we are going to answer the question why UI is important. So UI is important because a well-designed user interface adds value to the product and establishes like a strong and clear visual language. It creates smooth interactions and an enriching experience. Now, from the other hand, like imagine a bad designed user interface. The only thing that you would win is having users being frustrated with your product and probably like swearing the designer and the developer team. So we kind of don't want that. Now let's go back to our original question, which was what does a UI designer do? And in simple terms, he's doing the practice of UI. But if we want to go into a little bit of more details, we will go back to our pyramid. And we already talked about the 3 steps, which are in the bottom, like the user research analysis, content strategy, and the information architecture. But now we will also talk a little bit more about the 2 steps, the interaction design and the visual design. So in the interaction design, the designer focuses on the surface details. So yes, here we are talking about buttons, colors, and typography, but not only those things. The designer will give the finishing touches to the whole product, to the whole experience, and the designer has to be a very skilled person. So he has to have like a lot of knowledge in things such as typography, color theory, iconography, illustration, layouts, and readability, contrast. And it's like a really, really big list. I didn't obviously like wrote everything here in that slide. And then the last step would be the visual design, which the focus here is on possible variations of the screen and how we'll respond to user input, some animation, some feedback, and stuff like that. So in this step, in this final step, the designer has to apply design patterns effectively, create component libraries for his team, for future people in his team, and establish complete design system. And also, don't forget that sometimes we are also changing screens and new technology is coming, so designers will always have a lot of work and a lot of things to think of. Okay, cool. So I hope that by now you know what UX is, you know what UI is, and you can understand the similarities and the differences between these 2 disciplines. As we said, from the user's perspective, maybe those 2 things are distinguishable, but from the developer's or the designer's perspective, these 2 things are connected. You cannot have a UI, a user interface, without having the UX, the user experience. So UI is actually a part of UX. And now we can continue with the second part of this talk, which is heuristics. What are heuristics? What about the heuristic evaluation, and why do you need it, and why, again, it is important? In a nutshell, heuristics is about making decision with the information that you already have. And something like a quote from Donald Norman, which I really like, says, good design is actually a lot harder to notice than poor design, in part because good designs feature it so well that the design is invisible. And I think that's very true. So, heuristic evaluation. Heuristic evaluation is a key part of designing a great product that users are going to love, are going to use, and will find satisfaction in it. And the purpose of it, and here is the important stuff, the purpose of it is to detect usability issues that may occur when users interact with your product. Because maybe if you're seeing a product from the developer's perspective, you think that, yeah, that is a nice feature, it works, I don't have like any bug here, everything is fine and cool. But you are the developer, you're not the end user. So that's why we have the heuristic evaluation, because we want like to know what the user thinks about our products. And the heuristic evaluation is conducted against a predetermined usability principles known as heuristics, and this is something that we are going to be talking. Although there are numerous heuristics evaluations and numerous heuristics methods, we are only going to focus in one of them. We are going to focus on the last one, the third one that you see in the column, in the third column. We're going to focus on the heuristic analysis because it's a bit easier and because it has like the most reliable results, and pretty much like if we have something in mind, like everyone can do it. So, how to conduct an effective heuristic evaluation. Again, here we have some predefined steps, and this is very cool because you don't have to think something. You have the steps, you just have to follow those exact steps. And even those steps are not too many, so trust me, you can do that. All right, so you have to answer some questions, like 5 to 6 questions. Now, the first step is to define the scope of your evaluation and ask the question, what do I want to test? The second thing that you want is to know your end user, and here obviously you need your users, so who is this product for? Then you have to choose your set of heuristics, ask yourself which usability principles should be followed, and set up an evaluation system and identify the issues. So ask yourself, how will evaluators assess and report a usability issue? Now, the last thing that you have to do, and this one, like it's kind of mandatory, is to analyze and summarize the findings. I mean, you did so much research, you did so many things, you have to have some data, some metadata from all those things, all those research. So really important step is the fifth one. What do the findings show? Okay, after you're doing all those things, you're almost ready to go. Another quote that I really like says, appointing 5 to 8 heuristic evaluators should identify over 80% of usability hitches. And I think that this number, like 80%, is kind of too much. And this shows how important is the heuristic evaluations. So we have like our third part, which I know we don't have much time, so we'll go quickly through that. And these 10, let's say, rules are coming from Jacob Nielsen. It was manifested in 1995. And those 10 things says, firstly, visibility of system status. People love to know what's going on their phone. For example, you can see the time, you can see the internet, you can see the notifications. If you have a product, show things to the users. It's not bad. People want to know what's happening into that product. Second rule, match between the system and the real world. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There are some stuff out there, use them. There are some stuff that we already know how they work, use those stuff. You don't want something new again and again and again. The third thing is user control and freedom. The user, either you want it or not, maybe it's in a hurry, maybe he misclicked something, maybe he didn't see something, he will do some things that he or she don't really understood or knows about. So always give them the option to go back or to remove the last thing that they did. And then the fourth rule, which is one of my favorites, says consistency and standards. For example, you should be very consistent through your product, through your apps or whatever. The example that I wanted to give is maybe you have like a delete icon and you have like that bin. Always use the same bin. Or you have like an error and you show that error with the red color. Always use the same red color. And like I could give you a lot more examples because consistency is personally, I think that it's one of the most important rules, and I see that not a lot of people are caring about that one. The next thing is error prevention. Either you want it again, either not, your users are going to do some mistakes. And we identified two kinds of mistakes, the slips and the actual mistakes. Now the sleeps, which is the first category, is a little bit easier because the user maybe did a mistake, but he can take it back. So he can go one step back and it's okay, he didn't miss anything serious. But if we're talking about the actual mistakes, this is not the user's problem. This is the problem of the team who thought the product or who thought like the whole procedure. So the product should go back to the designer teams, to the developer teams, and they should find a way to fix that thing. The other rule, the sixth rule, is the recognition rather than recall. This is like we have two types of memory, the recognition and recall. We want recognition. When you have recognition, it's easy to identify things. You see something, you know what that thing, you will click into that, you don't have to think a lot. From the other hand, recall, which is something that we don't want, is when you have to think of something. For example, when you have to think of a date, when you have to think of a number, we don't want that. We want things to be easy, and the easiest it is, the happier the user is going to be. The seventh rule is flexibility and efficiency of use. Every user is unique. We have the users that are going to use our app or our product for the first time. So maybe they want to see more details, maybe they want more information. But from the other hand, we are also having the experienced users, and these users know their stuff, know what they want. So we want to provide them extensibility, more features, like ways to connect the app or the product with something else. And we have to have in mind both of these categories, the first time users and the users that are power or the power users. The other rule is aesthetic and minimal design. Again, this is one of my favorite rules and my biggest tip here would be use white. When you don't know what to do, use white and use a lot of space between your divs, your elements, or whatever. And don't try to mix a lot of colors unless you are very experienced, and don't try to have like too many details or too many information. Yes, as we said, it's nice to have many information, but keep the most important stuff. Like, this is what we want. The other rule is help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. And again, we have some users that they will do some mistakes, either we want to or not. Try to give them, to show them why they did that error and what are the actions that they can do now to prevent that error. So when they are trying to upload an image, for example, don't say, yeah, we can't upload that image. Say, for example, yes, we can upload only this type of images, like we can only accept PNG and GIFs, and that's it. And don't use like those silly, let's say, errors that said there is an error on line 20. Okay. No one can understand that, so no one knows that. And the 10th rule is help and documentation. We have some people that maybe never go into the help and the documentation, but we have other people that they will find the help and documentation very useful. You don't have to have like huge documentation. Just have something simple, and trust me, it's going to work. Don't have like overcomplicated language. Don't use like many technical terms, because people don't easily get those things. Just be specific, just be minimal, and always provide help and documentation. Very quickly, because I'm not sure again about the time, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks about the UX. So some do's and don'ts for a UX designer. Don't assume you know what user wants. That's why we're having the tests. Don't follow the hippo of the room. HIPPO stands for the highest paid person's opinion. And do make the time and effort for user research. Don't just create a list of methods to check off. It's not a to-do list. Do understand all research options and the strengths of each. And don't prototype too soon. Do conduct scoping research, not just evaluative. And do focus on what people do rather than what people say. If you can only do one thing, do conduct user testing. And don't overlook existing insight from customer care representatives. Always do collaborate. Do find someone qualified to do your research or be one yourself. And now the last part is the good and the bad of UI. This is going to be something like a small test for you. So pick a side. You're always going to see two things, and you can like very quickly just decide which one of you are. So about UI, a good designer is not the one who designs beautiful, usable, and impressive interfaces. The main difference that sets apart a good designer from a bad one is the mindset. So in this test, let's say, we are going to be focusing on the mindset. So the designer's mindset. Are you the good one or the bad one? The good designers listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. The good one will question the status quo, digs deep to find out real problems and needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way, or tries to fix only the symptoms. Now, the good designer will take time to ask about what is missing and not follow his assumptions, and is always uncertain about his understandings and designs, whereas the bad one is always certain about his work. Now, the good designer has many solutions and many ideas and tries always to find issues and flaws in his work, whereas the bad designer has only one idea and tries to invest all his time on persuading people that he has like the best ideas. The good designer loves working with others, loves collaborating, revisits his thoughts, and has something to learn from everyone that he meets, whereas the bad one loves to work alone, tries to confirm his thoughts, and thinks he knows everything. Now, the good designer loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to always be right and seeks praise. The good one leads, the bad one follows. So which one are you? The good one or the bad one? That was it, people. I hope that you enjoyed it, my talk. Again, like if you have any question, feel free to ask me anything. Or if you have like a question that you think later, after this session, feel free to find me on my social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, and even on my email or on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much, guys, and I hope that you enjoyed this talk.
Thank you, Ellie. That was really, really good. It's so interesting to see that you're so passionate about design and good UX practices. How did you get inspired to do this talk?
Because I was always like searching for these kind of things. I was always searching about UX and I was always searching about UI, and I was working in companies that they didn't have like a separate part with UX designers or UI designers. So usually the developers had to do the job of the designers. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be good at that. I wanted to know my stuff. So that's why like I started learning and working more and more on that field.
Fantastic. There was some fantastic feedback in the chat whilst you were doing your talk. Matthew says he doesn't know much about UX or UI, but this was really helpful. And I agree, there was definitely some clarifying moments in there. Oh, that makes loads of sense. Other people saying, Denny was saying fantastic advice about using white space because it's great for accessibility as well. There was, there was a lot of chatter, just very positive about what you're doing.
Right.
So.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Denny also shouts out that you've got a nice vlog YouTube channel, which I occasionally watch as well. So anyone that doesn't know, go check out Ellie's vlog. It's really good.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Great to see you.